The affordability of the state pension is becoming far more expensive for the government to operate. We are living longer in society. If a government was used to paying on average 10 years of the state pension, they're now having to pay 13 years of the state pension. Right. And they're saying, well, if people are living longer, we've got to, if you want to get the maximum state pension, you have to have had, let's keep it real, it's probably going to mean a downgrade in your quality of life. And that's the reason why we've all got to make our own provisions. I would always encourage everyone to maximize their employer contributions first. Maximum that you can contribute into a pension in any one tax year to benefit from the government's tax relief is £60,000. Or if you pay into a pension, £5,000 a year into your pension. What the government will do is they'll say, right, if I work for myself through a limited company, so your company makes pension contributions to the employee. When you do that, you get corporation tax savings. Currently, you can draw down from your company pension or your private pension at the age of 55. Now, that age of 55 is moving to 57 in 2028. Again, there'll be various reasons as to why they will do it, but I think the big one is to...
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable. Like, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
When you grow up in ends, you don't realise it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We got special guests in the building. Godfrey, how are you doing today?
And I'm really good, thank you. How you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Yes, it's Monday. You know what? I'm very excited for this episode. I feel like I've got a lot of energy for today.
All right.
I think I had a good weekend.
No pressure then.
Yeah, I'm feeling best. So, who is Godfrey?
It's a mad broad question, you know. Whenever someone asks you who are you, it's mad broad. But Godfrey. I'm from the Aylesbury estate in Walworth Road, kind of Elephant and Castle. So at one point in time, it was like the biggest estate in Europe, Aylesbury estate. So kind of grew up there. Mum and dad are Ghanaian, so obviously man's Ghanaian, which is calm. And I suppose growing up, like the thing for me was all around playing football, if I'm being honest with you. Okay. Like, you know, when you're growing up in ends, like everyone wants to kind of play football. So we're trying to do the football route. And then it gets to a stage where you're like, is this going to happen for me, if that makes sense? And it wasn't going to happen for me when I got to like 18. So then I done the uni route. Obviously went to uni, then I went into corporate, and then now I'm doing financial advice. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Crazy. The football. So okay, let's start on football. You know what's crazy, right? Okay, I'm gonna say this because a lot of people might not know this. I actually know Godfrey previously, because I won't say I grew up in Aylesbury, but I had family members in Aylesbury. So I was always around in Aylesbury. They love football. They do love football in Aylesbury.
Because like in Aylesbury, as it's so big, so you had like cages everywhere. Yeah. So my estate, you had the cage. You can walk literally 2 minutes. There's another cage. Go round to where your cousin's bit is. There's a cage there. So we kind of all grew up in street or cage or street football culture. Yeah. So that's what we kind of do.
How much more do you think? Like, I don't feel like I see a lot of that, a lot of the playing.
I agree,
even with the football. I see some, like in my area, like there is a pub. I don't feel like
in the same way it was back in the day. Yeah. And obviously, like when they knock down all the houses and build all the new ones, they don't really allocate space really to kind of
to have that
side of things where you can actually, and when you think about it, that is what got us all kind of close together.
That's true.
Because like playing sports, and it doesn't have to be just football. Sports connects people. And that's how we kind of got to know everyone in and around the area, because we might do our block versus that block. Do you know what I mean? And then you're meeting the man from that side of Aylesbury. So now it was nice though, but football was that's everyone's like passion when they're young.
Oh, that's great. So obviously you must have, like, what was school like for you? I guess what was like growing up in the area of Aylesbury, like, because obviously you went to uni, right? Even though you did, a lot of people, like, when they don't do football, they don't have that option. So I guess, like, what was it like growing up in the area for you, and then what kept you kind of going to this transition?
I thought it was calm, like I said, I went Tennyson's in Oval, but for me, again, that's where you just meet loads of different people doing loads of cool things. So for me, growing up was actually kind of calm, if I'm being honest with you. Obviously, there's few things happening in and around you, which is character building.
Yeah. That's what people say. People keep on saying that, you know. It's the best word.
It is, you know, because you know when you grow older, you look back on it, you go, raw, like those kind of situations just kind of built you as a person. So I'm always forever grateful for those kind of experiences. But yeah, I said most of my time was spent playing football. So me and a couple of my friends were playing semi-pro at the time.
Okay.
So we were, At the time it was calm. Yeah, we're playing for AFC Wimbledon. So I was kind of always training twice a week, matches on a Saturday, or we might then have matches on Sunday or matches in the week. And I said, you get to that point where like, well, what do I do next if football's not going to work out for me? And academically, I was always kind of okay. So then when I went to college, thinking, let me buy some time. Because remember, at that point, it's not even like I knew what I wanted to do other than be a footballer. So what uni did was it bought me time to think, right, what is it that I want to do?
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because you've got 3 years of studying, so you're not having to commit yourself to a career at that stage.
Yeah. So you hadn't given up the idea of being a footballer during uni? Because I was going to ask you, like, you know, what was like the final nail in the coffin to be like, I'm not going to...
it's when I went to uni, Brunel, I went Brunel. So when I got to Brunel, I was in Uxbridge.
Yeah.
And football was in Wimbledon was in like Tolworth side. So that's where we used to train anyway, like in Tolworth side. So logistically, it was just so difficult to go all the way to football. Remember, you have to commit, like I said, 2-3 days a week. Then to go all the way to Uxbridge and then do up uni. And you have to obviously apply yourself when you're at university. You in first year, you can kind of have fun, so to speak. But when you get to second and third year, the level of dedication that is required to get the grades you want takes a lot. So I think I kind of hit that crossroad where I'm like, do you know what? Let me just drop the football thing, because I probably wasn't going to make it, if I'm being honest as well.
You
like,
think so?
I was all right, but like I wasn't kind of the best, if that makes sense. So when you hit that crossroads, you really got to make a decision that says, am I going to go all in with the football thing, or am I going to go all in with education? And obviously, we thank God. Obviously I went education. It's kind of worked out for me. But obviously you never know what can happen anyway. What could have happened?
That's mad. What did you end up studying?
Politics and history.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mad.
Politics and history.
Politics and history.
Good,
History was one of my favorite subjects. In college.
Wow. Okay.
And I remember when I was at uni, I was thinking, like, what do you do with a history degree? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what career can you kind of get into? And so I thought, you know what? Let me do history because I love history. I love history in college, but I will add on the politics. So if all else fails, man can be a politician.
Okay, so you wanted to become a politician?
No, I didn't want to become a politician.
But
I'm
like
saying,
the backup plan.
Yeah, that was the backup, like, because obviously in them days, they didn't really tell us, that, or they didn't really tell us that you can do any degree and get any career. It was kind of like the degree you had to do was focus in the career you want to go to. So if you want to be a doctor, go and study medicine. If you want to go into law, obviously be a lawyer, go and study law. So with a history degree, I'm thinking, what does man do with history? do you know what I'm trying to say? I didn't know it can land me jobs in like the corporate space, because actually all they actually want to see is that you've just got the degree more than anything.
That's true.
But I didn't know that at the time. And that's why I said I don't want to do just the history degree. Let me throw on the politics. I said, if all else fails, man might go and be a politician. But that was never, trust me.
You never know, man. Now you got the degree, you never know. You might, maybe in the future. I mean, I feel like we need new politicians. We need like realistic politicians. We need politicians that are honest with people. I don't know.
I hear you. But yeah, that's kind of how, like, that's what kind of how I got into politics and history.
Okay, that's mad, because where you are today, you are like a financial advisor. So I guess, how did that come about, like, you know, wanting to become a financial advisor?
It's a good question. Like, I remember it vividly, when I was 19, so it would have been 2011, my whole family went back to Ghana on a holiday, but it left just me and my dad at home. And you know, like them times, like, you know, African dads in particular, they can be kind of stiff, you know, they can be kind of stiff. You're not really having conversation like that. But my dad sat me down one time and he was educating me about all things finances, because he had learned all of his financial education knowledge back home in Ghana. So when he came to this country, he applied that knowledge when he was here and was really successful doing so. So at that time, he sat me down like, this is what investments are, this is what pensions are, like other sort of complex financial instruments. And I was like,
that's so crazy.
At 19, and
yeah,
I was thinking,
that's insane.
I was blown. I can't even, like, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. And my dad would even tell you, as soon as he told me, I remember it was like a 2-hour conversation. I ran upstairs, I got my iPad, I literally invested right there and then on the spot.
Seriously?
5 bills, put down, invested, and I started doing monthly regular investments since the age of 19. But that all came though from the conversation that I had with my dad.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So like when I had that knowledge, I'm still going through my corporate career. But you know, like one of them annoying friends, bro, have you man done your pensions? Bro, have you met that? That was kind of me in the background while I was doing corporate. So in a way, I kind of was like everyone's unofficial financial advisor, while I was doing corporate. And when it got to COVID, I was like, right, do you know what? I want to do something a bit more purposeful, something that I'm passionate about. And where I find myself so fortunate that I had benefited from that financial education so young, it only felt natural for me to then make that transition so I can help educate others in terms of that financial education too. Sense. So that's kind of how like I got into it.
That makes sense. And it's crazy because I was listening to a podcast episode on Diary of CEO, right? And it was the one with Daniel Priestley, and he was saying something like, passion is like basically your origin story. I think connected to like your future story, and it's like what you're saying, right? Your origin story was that your dad changed your mind in terms of, or you know, kind of informed you about, wow, there's this whole new world, personal finance. Have you looked at, like you said, investing? Have you looked at pension, budget and stuff like that, right? At that young age where actually we don't even have the education.
It's true.
You know, and then you got that education from your dad, right? Like that's crazy.
It was incredible. And you know, obviously, because you're into personal finance, that when you were growing up, you could probably notice that financial literacy is fairly low. Very low, do you know what I mean? Like you probably clocked it yourself, and that's why I said when I got to a certain age, probably actually I don't know if your story is quite similar in terms of when you started your podcast, just in terms of imparting all your knowledge and all your wisdom into other people. So it's kind of like that. Okay,
that's crazy. That's crazy. What do you feel like you obviously you learned like the information part, but what kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not habits, but rules, or you know, that you learned from your dad? Because obviously he told you, okay, pension investing, but like what was the methodology, should I say, that you feel like you learned from
everything about my dad has always been long term. Not even taking investing aside, he's just always got a long term view on life, period. That just kind of became my thing from that conversation, is delayed gratification. In your old age, that's literally everything, every conversation I have with him. I ask even all my friends and all my brothers and my sister who speak to him, in your old age. And that just kind of became my discipline going forwards.
In your old age.
In your old age. You want to have provisions so that in your old age, you're able to look after yourself. Yeah, because at some point we're all going to grow old, right? And if you haven't made the right financial plans when you're young, it's going to affect you in your old age. So when you speak to him, genuinely he's always like, in your old age, followed by something.
All right. So what is your kind of plan? Like, do you know when there, what is it going to be?
Exactly that.
Mad.
So then when I took on that information, everything became in my old age, right? How do I want my life to be when I'm older, when I'm retired? I want to feel obviously comfortable in my retirement, especially if you're not working, right? You don't want to have to downgrade your lifestyle. Or do I want to retire when I'm 66 at the moment, going on 67 when the government, or in 2028 anyway, when the government raises the state retirement age? I don't want that. I actually want to retire when I'm 55, because you know how it goes. Like when you get older, that's when health complications start to come in naturally anyway. So some people don't even get to enjoy their retirement. I actually want to try and do it when I'm relatively young and relatively healthy. So that's all of my thing is then kind of built on that to say, in my old age, I want to be relatively healthy and I want to be able to enjoy my retirement. Wow. So that's kind of like the mentality I adopted from him in that conversation, and obviously subsequent conversations, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, that was like the conversation that kickstarted everything.
Okay, wow, that's incredible. And it aligns nicely with what we want to talk about today, which is pensions, and pensions is an interesting thing because I feel like a lot of us, it's got a bit of that mystique. It's got a bit of that, I don't need to care about that right now. Like, I'm not retiring right now. I'm retiring 30, years, right? But it's like you say, like, time is just ticking.
Of course.
If you don't look at your pension, if you don't know what the plan is, if you don't even know if you have a pension, some people say they think they have a pension. They don't know how much is in it.
Especially if they've moved jobs quite frequently.
Yeah.
They might not actually know. No, that is very true.
Yeah, which is let me not say insane because being honest, I think I first ever got a pension when I was working part-time at a phone shop, right?
Okay.
I was getting pension, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't care.
Because you're probably thinking retirement is ages away. Like.
I didn't care. I didn't really know what this thing was. I was like, what is this money? I can't touch it. Like, it's like what you're told, innit? It's pension is for when you're old, right?
Of course.
That's what you're told. And then I had a few pots in different places, but again, it wasn't like, it wasn't anything crazy. So pensions are, it's got like an air of mystique there. So it's crazy. So I guess obviously one of the ways that you can pay less tax is by contributing to a pension.
Of course.
Right. But this can be either private pension or company pension. Is that correct? Is that the only two ways that you're aware of?
So you essentially got your state pension, which obviously we can talk about, which you can access at 66 now, rising to 67 in 2028. You've got your workplace pension if you're employed, which you can contribute into your pension, and your employer can also contribute on your behalf too. Yeah. And then you have private pensions, which is when the individual just chooses to open up their own pension with investment company or insurance company, so to speak. Yeah. And they can do it that way. So I tried to personally, or even when I was working in corporate, of course, I maximized my pension contributions with my employer, but I also had my private pension at the same time.
Okay, you had a private one.
I had and it's still going actually. I've still got my private pension. Yeah, even at the same time that I was working. Nice. Again, there's no hard and fast rule, right? Yeah. Everyone's got to do what's right for their own personal circumstances. But I would always encourage everyone to maximize their employer contributions first. Okay. Yeah, so if, for example, your employer says, if you pay 6% of your salary, we will match you and pay 6%. Okay. You want to be maximizing your pension contributions because you've got 6% of free money from your employer. Why would you not take it, right? Yeah. But at the same time, the reason why I chose to do a private pension, one, because of my dad, but two, just from a diversification point of view.
Okay, right.
Because investment performance, because when you pay into a pension, it gets invested. And
a lot of people don't know that, by the way. They just think it's a pot of money sitting somewhere far out.
It actually gets invested, right? And it gets invested into various different assets, depending on one's appetite for risk, so to speak. And investment performance can massively affect your pension pot. Yeah. So if you have a pension pot growing at 2% a year, or you have a pension pot growing at 6% a year, clearly the one growing at 6% a year is going to give you more money in retirement than the one that grows at 2%. So that's why I chose to split my risk, because my workplace pension that's invested, yes, it will get invested, and I don't know what is going to come of it. If I have a private pension, it means if this one isn't performing very well, the private one might, and vice versa. Okay. So it just helps me balance my risk.
Okay. Wow.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was wondering, like, with the state pension as well, right? Does everybody get that? Is there like any particular requirements around?
So there is a criteria for it. Yeah. So in order to get a state pension, you have to have at least 10 years or 10 qualifying years of national insurance contributions.
Okay, 10 years. Okay.
At least 10 years. Okay. And if you want to get the maximum state pension, which is currently £10,600 a year.
Okay, 10K, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
in terms of the state pension, you have to have had 35 qualifying years of national insurance.
So what does the 10 years give you?
So I don't know the actual numbers, but it will be on a sliding scale, right? Okay. So if 10.6 gets you the maximum, they will reduce how much you get, based on how many qualifying years of NI contributions you've had. But you have to have at least 10 to even qualify for getting a state pension.
Okay, so 35 for 10,000 doesn't sound like the best deal. So, because my next question was going to be, should you rely on it? And let me ask the financial advisor, should you rely on it? Because I don't want to answer. I was going to answer. I was almost going to answer.
What's your thoughts on it? I'll give you mine.
No, 10 grand for 35 years. I mean, most okay, let me quantify that. So 35 years. Okay, let's say you assumed you didn't start working until after 21. Let's just assume, right? So 35 years, I guess that's until you're 56. Okay, so it's doable, right?
Yeah.
But that's, like you say, continuous.
Of course. For me, definitely, in my opinion, I definitely don't rely on the state pension, because you got to think of your quality of life in retirement. And let's keep it real, £10,600 a year, it's probably going to mean a downgrade in your quality of life, particularly if you're used to living a certain way. And that's why I'm always advising everyone to make provisions for their old age through their workplace pension or their private pension. And what the state pension should be is a bonus more than anything, as opposed to something that you rely on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just take it as
as a bonus.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, okay, this is not a controversial question, but there's almost no guarantee either in the future that it won't be reduced. There's 1 or 2 years. Oh, the economy, Because the reason why I'm saying that is I see it the economy, the government, all this stuff. I just see it as one big company.
Yeah.
The UK is a company, right? And if you liken that to your own company, right? If your company doesn't do well 1 year, they're going to be like, well, we can't give you bonuses.
100%.
You can't give you a salary, right?
100%.
That's an excuse for it.
And you can see how the state pension age, as I said, currently 66, going to 67 in 2028. The government can, depending on what government comes in, of course, they can move the state pension age too.
Can they?
Of course they can, right?
Hence why. Sorry, when I say can they, I mean is it a lot? Can they keep on moving it?
It depends what they see fit, right? Because right, and obviously you're at the behest of them, really. Yeah. But they will look at it, I suppose. There's several different things they'll look at, but the affordability of the state pension is becoming far more expensive for the government to operate.
Right. Okay.
Right, and there's a few things. If you think in the year 2000, the average life expectancy for a man male is 75, and for women it was 80. The average life expectancy today, so we're talking 2024 years on, is 78 for males and 83 for females.
Okay.
So we are living longer in society. Advances in technology, advances in medicine, a bit more of an overall awareness now on just overall health and well-being means we're living longer. So if a government was used to paying on average 10 years of the state pension, they're now having to pay 13 years of the state pension.
Right, so it's more expensive.
It's more expensive for them to run.
Okay,
and
crazy.
The Conservative government have also committed to what's called the triple lock for pensions. I don't know, have you heard of the triple lock?
I've heard of triple lock. I never understood what it really meant.
And it's basically saying, in terms of the state pensions, if you take the 10,600 that it is currently, that will go up every year in line with either inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, higher average earnings, average weekly earnings, weekly earnings, or 2.5%, whichever is highest.
Okay, wow.
So inflation obviously was previously running at about 18 months ago, 10, 11%.
Yeah.
So it meant that the government committed to the triple lock, paid or increased pensions by that amount.
Wow.
So if you think, if they committed to that every single year, the state pension will go up every single year by either 2.5% average weekly earnings or consumer price inflation, whichever's highest. Again, that becomes very expensive to run. So not only are you paying more every single year, you're also paying it for longer.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, if people are living longer, we've got to move the state pension age to make it more affordable for us to run and for us to even keep it as a benefit for the masses.
Okay. So this now explains, because my next question was like, why are they increasing it? It's reasons like that. Okay.
Exactly. And by the way, there will be loads of other reasons, but the principal reasons will be affordability.
Okay.
As I said, committing to the triple lock.
Yeah.
That's the Conservative government pledge, and also people living longer.
Wow.
so that's why they're making these strategic decisions about let's move it to 67 by 2028, and then potentially in 2044, 2046 they were talking about potentially raising their state pension age to 68.
Yes.
And I read in obviously they haven't come out and said anything, but I read in an article, I think it was about a month or two ago, I don't know if you saw it actually, about state pensions could rise to 71.
I haven't seen the 71 one.
Really? No, it wasn't a play. It was just an article.
It was an article.
Yeah. No, the government didn't come out and say anything. Okay. It was just an article, and everyone just started panicking, like, how can we be working till we're 71 before we get pension age? But the thing is, you never know what any government's going to do, right? They can come in and change things as they see fit. Yeah. And that's the reason why we've all got to make our own provisions outside of the government, so that whatever changes that they make aren't going to necessarily affect you and your financial plan. Because remember, I plan on retiring when I'm 55. Okay. That's my own personal retirement age. Now, if I retire at 55, the government can do all they want in terms of raising the state pension age. They can raise it to 75 for all they care. I'm still retiring at 55 because my plan is independent of the state pension. Okay. That's a bonus for me. Yeah. It's not built into my plan.
Yeah. That's the thing. I feel like if you just don't know what the future will look like if you don't have a plan, if you can't fall back on your own plan, right? Like you say, it can continue increasing, and like you say, if people live longer, then it's going to continue increasing, right? People average age starts getting to 100, they might get us working till we're 80.
But can you imagine?
Yeah. No, I would not, honestly. I wouldn't want that on anybody. Like, I wouldn't. But let me not say that I'll be surprised.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised either. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. And that's why the emphasis has to be on us to build our own financial futures. Like I say, independent of the government and the state pension that comes with it.
Yeah. It's crazy. So let's talk about the company private pension, because obviously it seems like there's a lot of value like there, right? And you get a lot of tax benefits from that as well. So we talked about you can save tax by contributing to a company private pension. Is there a certain amount you can put away in a pension before you lose like your tax benefits?
Yeah, so the maximum that you can contribute into a pension in any one tax year is £60,000. Okay. Or 100% of your earnings. Okay. Whichever is lower. So for example, if you have a salary of £30,000 a year, the maximum you can pay into your pension that year is £30,000. Okay. And receive the tax relief from the government. Yeah. If you earn over £60,000 a year, let's say you're earning 80 grand a year, the maximum you could contribute to benefit from the government's tax relief is the 60,000. Okay. So it's either 60,000 or 100% of your earnings, whichever is lower. Okay. Hence why I use the example. If you're earning less than 60 grand, the max you can pay in is your salary to receive the government's tax relief.
Yeah. And in that example where it's 80, like if somebody was fortunate enough to put 80 wow, a year, what would happen in that case? Is it a case of like the government's going to be like, you need to start paying us tax?
There could be a tax charge on it. Exactly. Okay. So you want to avoid that tax charge as far and as reasonably as possible. So you get the £60,000 per annum or contribution maximum into your pension in that scenario where someone's earning above. Yeah. But they also do carry forward. So if you haven't used your pension allowance in the previous 3 tax years, you could use that to contribute in the tax year that you're in. So let's say, for example, I paid, I don't know, let's say I'm earning £80,000 a year. I paid nothing into my pension in the last tax year. In this current tax year that I'm in, I could technically pay in £120,000 into my pension, which is the 60k for this tax year and the 60k for the previous tax year.
That's quite a good benefit.
Which is the carry forward allowance. But mind you, it gets a bit complex though than that, so it's not as straightforward. But in very simplistic terms, that's how it would operate.
Okay, and you need a financial advisor,
and that's where you need. That's where you genuinely, because it's very complex. All of these different things. There's loads of nuances within anything you do when it comes to pensions, particularly because of the rules and regulations around it. But in very simplistic terms, that could be possible.
Carry forward. That's so interesting, because I've heard it, but I never actually understood what that meant. It sounds like a great benefit. Great benefit.
If you got the money. If
you got the money to... Oh my...
Exactly. So if, I don't know, if you have a massive bonus from work, you might then have a big lump sum, which if you take that bonus as cash for yourself, clearly you're going to be subject to income tax, national insurance, student loan, if applicable, and all those other bits and pieces. So that could be one reason why you might want to put it into a pension. Is because it helps you to, one, avoid all of that tax. And if you are wanting to invest more than the 60k per annum, then you have the benefit of the carry forward too. So that could be one example. Another example could be if you've had a mad inheritance. So you've just come into loads of money, hundreds of thousands. You might want to know what to do with that money. And therefore, I don't know, if you inherit, I don't know, $250,000 as an example, clearly the limit is 60 grand, like I mentioned, or 100% of your earnings. Therefore, you might use carry forward in that scenario because you've got a lump sum that you can then put in. So everyone's circumstance is different, but there could be situations that give opportunities for you to put in more than the 60 grand and use your carry forward allowance too.
And at that 60 grand, that threshold that's combined between your company pension and private, right? It's not like...
Correct. And it also includes your employer's contribution too.
Okay. So that's how people can go over.
That's how people can potentially go over. Because if you've got a mad company pension where they're saying ATS will give you 20% of your salary in pension, and you're paying in, I don't know, an extra, I don't know, 5, for example, you got 25% of your salary going in, depending on how much you earn, obviously. You can see how you can quickly reach that 60k allowance, depending obviously on your salary, right?
That's crazy. Wow.
So so between your private pension, your workplace pension that you contribute, and your employer's contribution, exactly that, you can might be near enough your salary or the 60k limit.
Need help with your personal finances, or help with getting a mortgage, or guidance on investments or pensions? Well, I've got you covered. Today's sponsor, Unbiased, helps you with all of that. Unbiased is a platform that connects you easily and quickly with over 27,000 FCA regulated financial advisors, accountants, and mortgage brokers. We all need a little help when it comes to our personal finances and money, whether that's growing our money through investments, whether that's getting a property with a mortgage, planning for retirement, or just reviewing our personal finances. Unbiased is there to help anyone, no matter what their personal finance needs are. It's completely free to sign up to Unbiased, and when you're connected with a financial advisor, the first consultation is completely free. No wonder more than 3 million people are using Unbiased to help them with their personal finances. Check out Unbiased by tapping the link in the description of this episode so that they know that you came from me. Okay, cool. So there's various ways, as I understand it. Again, I'm glad I'm speaking to you about this because I think it'll clear up for me and like a lot of other people, right? So there's various ways you can invest in a pension, right? You've got, obviously we talked about like you can contribute, your employer can contribute. There's something called a salary sacrifice, I think, as well. Is there any other way that you can kind of contribute to a pension?
So they are essentially the two main ways, and I can explain how the tax relief works. So if you do salary sacrifice, for example, what that basically means is before the government takes any tax, they will minus any pension contributions that you make before applying tax.
Okay.
So, for example, if you are earning £50,000 a year in salary, of course, you get your £12,570 personal allowance, which is the amount you can earn before you pay any tax. I'll call it 12.5 just for the ease of the calculation, right? So if you're on a salary of 50k, they'll do 50,000 minus 12,500, which gives you 37.5. Now, if you're not paying into a pension, they would then apply 20% tax on 37.5, which will be £7,500 for the year. If you pay into a pension, now let's say you pay £5,000 a year into your pension, what the government will do is they'll say, right, £50,000 a year minus your £5,000 pension contribution, it leaves you with £45,000. If you then take off your 12.5 personal allowance, it leaves you with £32,500. And then when you apply 20% tax on that, your tax bill is £6,500.
Okay.
So you've just, in that scenario I've just showed you, you've saved yourself £1,000 in your tax bill from paying no pension to paying £5,000 a year into your pension.
Okay, wow, okay. So there's definitely benefit in doing it.
Massively.
Yeah,
so I said they will minus your pension contribution before they start the calculation for tax.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so if you think a lot of people, you know, and I know the government recently changed the rules, but they changed the rules to child tax benefits.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw it recently in the spring budget, but if you wanted to claim child tax benefits, if you or if anybody in the household earned more than £50,000 a year, you would then start to lose some of your child benefit. Only 50k.
Wow.
You will start to lose some of your child benefit. And the moment you earned 60,000 or more, you lose child benefit altogether.
Wow.
Right. So what? no, genuine. That's
crazy.
They've recently changed the rules in the spring budget, and I'll talk about those changes. But in current world, before it comes in April, that's how it was.
Yeah.
So what people used to do, which is a really good strategy to deploy, I should say, is let's say you earn £60,000 a year. 60,000. If you then pay 10 grand into your pension, it means that your net salary is now 50,000. Which means you fall into the allowance for child benefit because your salary is not 60 anymore. It's 50 because you take off your 10 grand pension contribution. 60,000 minus 10 gives you 50.
Oh, that's nice.
And of course, so not only do you maintain the child tax benefits because you're now earning 50k salary, but you've also reduced your tax bill because they're going to tax you on 50k, they're not going to tax you on 60k.
Okay. Wow.
Absolutely.
Is this still
so
applicable?
Yeah,
can you still do this or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's one of the strategies to deploy if you want to maintain some of your child's benefits. But as I said, in the spring budget, was it a couple of weeks ago or so now, they've changed the rules from the 6th of April, so the new tax year. So rather than 50,000, they've upped the limit to 60,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is coming in the 6th of April 2024. So if one parent can now earn up to 60,000 before they lose any child tax benefit. And where I said previous or currently, soon to be previously, if you earn £60,000 or more, you got no child benefit altogether. They've now raised that to 80,000. So if you earn, or one parent earns over 80,000, that's when you will stop receiving any of the child benefit. So they announced that in the spring budget a couple of weeks ago.
Wow. So there's so many tax benefits to pensions that people don't know.
Exactly.
I didn't know about that child benefit. I don't have kids, so obviously I don't know it, but wow, that makes sense. That makes so much sense.
It's a big conversation I have with clients and even just people around me. If you want access to that child benefits, contributing to your pension, whether that's through salary sacrifice with your work, or whether that's through investing into a private pension, of course, it's up to the individual. That helps bring your net salary down so that you can fall within the allowance to receive that benefit.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
Wow, I love that. That's such. I never knew that. Like, I didn't think that, because it's crazy, because the landscape, I feel, is like so complicated, right? And a lot, again, when you don't have the financial education, which none of us really. Well, fortunately, you were fortunate to get that.
I'm probably the anomaly.
Get that, right? So even these things, it will just be a straight, oh my God, I've earned this amount, I've lost it.
Yeah. You
there's
don't think
a loophole to get you back. And
exactly.
That's where having a financial advisor, like if you can afford it, really can help add value in like maximizing everything to the
completely, because it's about the knowledge.
Yeah.
Honestly, and having that expert voice who can support, guide you. I personally think is invaluable.
Yeah.
And even if you know some of these things, even just the confidence that someone reiterating it to you can help massively, knowing that you're doing the right things. Or even if you know quite a bit, the nuances which I discussed in quite a lot of these things, they can help fill that kind of knowledge gap for you. And then you might find out that you're either saving money that you probably didn't know that was there, or having access to benefits that you didn't know that you could have. Like all of those things are important, but of course it's not for everyone. I completely understand that. And always make sure you go for a regulated financial advisor. They must be regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority if you're going to have a discussion with a financial advisor.
Amazing. So okay, so you mentioned that you've got a private pension, right? Is it like, if you've got a company pension, is it worth getting a private pension? What's like your thoughts? Obviously you do it personally, but is it something like you really advise people on, like,
again, it depends. Genuinely, everyone's circumstance is different. So I would have to sit down with someone, understand their circumstances before recommending. But as I said, the first point of call for me is to maximize your workplace pension. That's the number one. If your company are saying they're going to match you, make sure you're getting the maximum that they're going to match you to. You might as well use that benefit. And then the private pension, if you happen to have spare cash, etc. For me personally, like I mentioned earlier, it was a diversification, like I said, of investment risk. Because my company pension will invest in certain assets or a different asset. And when I say assets, it could be either equities, it could be bonds, it could be property, depending on the nature of their investment. And then my private pension, I might invest in something completely different, again, just to balance my risk, because I'm very acutely aware that investment returns can genuinely have an impact on the amount you have in retirement as your pension pot, which obviously can then provide you with an income in retirement. So I said the difference between growing at 2% a year in the pension versus growing at 6% a year is very significant. And
it's 3 times as much, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's your pension pot, right? That you're going to need to retire. Now, don't get me wrong, growth is never guaranteed. And obviously, you know, the usual caveat, past performance is not a guide to
that's what they say.
To future performance, right?
The usual stuff.
The usual stuff, right? But obviously, I want to just manage my risk in terms of that diversification.
I love that. So I guess, how do you go about setting up a private pension if, you know, somebody wanted to? What's like the starting point for them to do that?
Do your research. That's the starting point. There's so many, obviously, different investment companies that offer pensions and all those bits and pieces. So doing your research, reading on what they offer, what different funds are being invested into your pension. There's recently been a big sort of drive to having pension money being invested in more like sustainable and responsible companies.
That's interesting.
Absolutely. Some people might not want to invest in arms companies or tobacco companies, whatever it is that may be for you. So you want to research on all of those things to make sure it's in line with what you want to invest in. What is your risk profile? Some investments are higher risk than others. So you want to make sure you're comfortable with the level of risk that you're putting behind your pension. Obviously the amount that you want to invest in your pension, but do all of that kind of research and then just go on individual kind of platforms and see what works for you. Or, like I said, you can go through a regulated financial advisor, and a regulated financial advisor can set up that private pension for you on your behalf, and they can utilize their expertise and all of those bits and pieces to help support you.
Okay, cool. I actually had this question, right? Because, so obviously business owners, they won't have a company pension, right? So they would be forced to invest in a private pension. if they do invest in a private pension, obviously if it meets the threshold of £60,000, you said, depending on how much they invest, put into the pension, they likely eligible to some money back. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so cool. Let's say we can use two examples. Yeah. So you can be a self-employed sole trader, or you can operate through a limited company. Yeah. So if you're a self-employed sole trader, for all intents and purposes, your private pension is obviously for you, but the tax treatment is kind of similar to somebody who's employed. Yeah. So as an example, let's say I'm a self-employed sole trader and I want to pay £400 a month into my pension. Yeah. I will get 20% government tax relief at source. So what that basically means is £400 a month will come out of my account. The government are going to add £100 on my behalf. So £500 a month is what actually gets invested in my pension.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even though £400 a month is coming out of my account, £500 a month is what gets invested. Okay. So I'm getting £100 a month for free money, which is the 20% tax relief. Now, again, let's stick to sole trader. Same scenario, but let's say my salary was above 50,270 a year. So I'm now a higher rate taxpayer, and therefore I'm paying 40% income tax. Same scenario, £400 a month is going into my pension. It's what I'm paying. Government's going to add their 100. But because I'm a higher rate taxpayer, at the end of the tax year, I'm liable, or not liable, I can get, an extra £100 a month back in tax relief. Okay. So at the end of the tax year, if I'm a higher rate taxpayer paying 40%, through self-assessment, if you say, here you go, I've paid £500 a month into my pension, which is £6,000 a year, and my salary is obviously over 50,270, the government will say, thank you very much. Here's an extra £100 a month back, which they will either use to reduce your tax liability for that tax year by 1,200 in this scenario, or they might, when you get those kind of HMRC letter checks through the post, or they might say you've overpaid on tax. Here you go. Here's it. Here you can have it back. Okay. So in that scenario, a £500 a month contribution for a 40% rate taxpayer is actually £300 a month to you, because £100 a month is going straight into your pension at source, and then the other £100 a month is coming back to you at the end of the tax year. Okay. So actually your contribution in that scenario is £300 a month, but actually £500 a month is getting invested into your pension.
Wow. That's epic.
Which is incredible. Yeah. And obviously if you earn over £125,140 a year, therefore your highest rate of tax is 45%. In that same scenario, rather than claiming back an extra £100, you can claim back an extra £125 a month. Wow. Because you're a 45% rate taxpayer. Okay. And that's your tax relief.
Okay. So that's how you do it. That's how you finesse the system. When you get that. The pension thing. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So that's for sole traders, self-employed sole traders. Now, if I am or work for myself, but through a limited company, what people end up doing is paying. So they will be an employee of their business, as well as obviously the director of the business. And what people typically do is they only pay themselves 12.5 grand a year in personal allowance from their business. And then they will top up their income with dividends. Yeah. Because dividends is a lower rate of tax than income tax. You can pay dividend tax of 8.75% versus income tax of 20%. Yeah, so it's tax efficient for you to do so. But in terms of the pension contribution, your employer is your company. Okay. So your company makes pension contributions to the employee. So let's say ATS, you own ATS Limited. Yeah. ATS Limited will make pension contributions on behalf of ATS the individual. Okay. And when you do that, you get corporation tax savings.
Oh, really?
Of course you do. Because of course your business ATS Limited will be subject to corporation tax, obviously on your profits. but pension contributions are seen as a business cost.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It has
Okay.
to pass, again, this is accounting terminology. It has to pass something called the wholly and exclusively test, which your accountant will be able to verify for you. But assuming it passes that, that is seen as a business cost.
Okay.
Yeah, so before you pay any corporation tax on your profits, they will have to minus any pension contributions that you've made.
Interesting.
And if you think corporation tax is at 25%, that could be a 25, or depending on how much profits your company make anyway, that could be a 25% corporation tax saving for you.
Wow. Okay, so you definitely need to be getting yourself financial advisor. Wow.
Absolutely.
There's so many loopholes.
No, there's so many things, and
This
that's
is
one
crazy.
100%.
This
And
is
pensions
crazy.
is so super powerful.
Yeah.
Because I think people tend to, as we discussed earlier, think of pensions longer term, around, it's like 30 years away, like, or whatever it is. I've got loads of time. Yeah. And they think about it in terms of how much income it's going to provide them, which is obviously all true, but it totally doesn't take into account the immediate benefits you can get from a taxation point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
So you get the instant benefit from taxation, which we've just discussed, and you get the long-term benefit of investing in your pension over the long term. One would expect it to grow. And then, of course, when it comes to drawing down your pension, the first 25% you can take out of your pension tax-free.
Oh, can you? Okay. Okay.
Completely tax-free.
First 25%. Okay.
Exactly. Oh, based on current government rules. Right?
Yeah. In the future, they might say 10%, 15%.
Exactly.
Subject to government changes.
So let's say you had $500,000 in your pension.
Yeah.
You could take out 125,000, which is 25%.
Yeah.
Lump sum, tax-free, which is perfect.
Yeah.
And then the other 375,000 in this example, you can then use to provide you with an income in your retirement. And obviously, depending on various different factors, it can provide you with any sort of annual salary or annual income, so to speak. And that's how it kind of works.
Wow. That's epic. So there's something that you mentioned actually, like earlier in our conversation where you were saying that you're going to retire, like, I think, did you say 55?
Done.
55, right?
Or not having to rely on work for income.
Yeah.
But I might obviously work if I choose to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, you clarified that for me. Thank you. So in terms of like the whole mystique of pension, state pension, we know that starts currently 67 is gonna
66 at the
66,
moment, moving
and it's gonna
67.
go 67, potentially 68, right? But with the company private pension, it's true that you can draw out or you can start taking from it earlier than that, right?
Correct. So currently you can take, or you can withdraw down from your company pension or your private pension, either one, at the age of 55 currently. Now, that age of 55 is moving to 57 in 2028.
No way. No way. I thought they couldn't change that. That's changing.
No, they moved that one as well. They moved that one as well. And it's because...
Oh, man, I thought I found a loophole. I was like, okay, the 55 is...
Honestly, like... And
who's changing this, by the way?
Yeah, I think it would have been the Conservative government who...
Oh, they...
I believe,
okay, so mandating it.
They've said they're going to move the earliest. And I mean, again, there'll be various reasons as to why they would do it, but I think the big one is to keep people in the workforce.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because of course, if you have everybody trying to retire at 55, right, there's not going to be anybody in the workforce to be able to fulfill basic public services. So that is a way, I guess, of people keeping people in work. But what government have also said is, in terms of drawing down from your private pension early, I said 57 by 2028, it will be always 10 years below the state pension age.
Okay.
So if they move the state pension age to 68, it means the earliest you can draw down your private pension and your workplace pension will be 58.
Okay.
Because it's 10 years lower than the state pension age.
Wow.
So they've moved the state pension age to 71, like the article that I read the other day.
Yeah.
The earliest you'll be able to draw down your workplace pension or private pension will be 61.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so they've now linked, they've linked it to 10 years below the state pension age. But I said, as it currently stands, it's 55 and it'll be 57 in 2028.
Sorry, guys.
I know that. I know.
I came with good news.
I really wish I could have said, yep, it's 55 ongoing. But you never know. Different governments can come in, change the rules and stuff like that. But of course, 55 now and obviously 57 is quite a long time, right, until retirement. Certainly, obviously, at the age group that we're at anyway. So you've always got to kind of balance any pension contributions that you make now with your current lifestyle now. Because when you invest it, you're really locking it away, depending on your age, for 10, 20, 30 plus years in some cases. So if that is the case, you need to make sure you've got money for your current lifestyle for now.
That's important.
Yeah, it's very important. When you're making that decision around investing in a pension, please don't invest in a pension and then you're compromising your quality of life.
Exactly,
right?
You're starving. Because like you're like, 30 years from now.
Exactly, right. So you want to have a balance.
It's balance. Oh man, that is crazy. That is actually crazy. The fact that they've increased it. It just shows you that, like you say, you have to have some kind of diversity, right?
100%.
Like in a range of areas, unfortunately, because it's just like...
and of course that there's... Whilst pensions, don't get me wrong, are very, very powerful in terms of a tool for retirement. You can use other investments, for retirement. So, I hear a lot of people say, my property portfolio is my retirement. Because of course, if you're got loads of property, you're renting those properties out as an example, that those properties will bring you income, and that income could be part of your retirement funds. It could be part of your retirement fund, and there's no let me wait till I'm 55 to access that money. Of course, you're going to get the income depending on how you calculate it all and how you invest. You could get that income right away. And you will still maintain that income, assuming obviously you get good tenants and consistent tenancy. That could be a retirement fund, right?
I agree. I completely agree. I think it's good to have a well-balanced portfolio where you're able at different stages of your life, you have, whether you're working or you have a business or you have something giving you income. I think it's quite
100%
important. So, okay, so this is like a fictitious example and there's a lot of assumptions here. So say you want to have a pension that was giving you about £50,000 a year, right?
Okay.
Let's assume mortgages are paid off, you don't have a lot of expenses, whatever. You want 50k income, and let's say you retired at 60, right? I guess how much would you need in your pension to be able to get that amount, like every year, roughly?
That is a very complex behind the scenes kind of calculation to determine that. So it is quite hard to say how much you would need. As a starting point, I tend to use the multiply by 20.
Okay.
I tend to use
as a starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
it's not so many answers.
No, please. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's so many.
Caveat this before anybody in the comments
please.
Start saying stuff.
So as a starting point, just to give you okay, I'm gonna need approximately this much. But there are loads of good online pension calculator tools that you can find where if you say I want 50 grand a year in retirement, for example, it'll be able to help you understand how much you would then need based on various assumptions in your retirement. But again, those things aren't hard and fast rules because so many things can happen. There could be legislation changes that affect it. There could be investment performance that affects it. It could be it could be so many different things, right? But as a general rule of thumb, multiply by 20, give you a starting point, but go and seek again from a regulated financial advisor or use some of the online calculator tools to try and just almost reaffirm if that's within the ballpark.
Okay, so the 50,000 a year times 20
as a start point.
As a starting point. Okay,
that's how much you need in your pot.
You'll need in your pot to supplement you that about income. 20 years. If you think 30 years, then 30.
Exactly. As a starting point. As a starting point.
Wow. That's incredible. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of you mentioned a little bit on taxes, right? On drawdowns, right? Like we're now thinking of in the future. You said 25% you can take out tax free
as a cash lump sum.
As a cash lump sum, right? Okay.
And then the remaining money that you draw down from your pension, that will be taxed, or in its simplistic terms, actually, it follows a similar principle of tax to somebody who's employed and working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's say, for example, I don't know, I'm getting 30 grand a year out of my pension pot in retirement. So the first 12,500 or 12,570, I'm rounding. First 12,500 will be my personal allowance.
Yeah.
So there'll be no tax on that money.
Okay.
Then the balance will be taxed at a rate of 20%. When I draw, well, of course, I'll be drawing down this scenario. Yeah. Will be taxed at 20%, which is the basic rate of tax.
Okay.
Because that's how much an employed person earning that money will be taxed.
Okay, so it just
follows, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But remember, it's not just pension income.
Yeah.
It's all of your income combined.
Your income gets taxed.
Yeah.
In that way. Okay.
So I don't know, if you're making, you got a property portfolio as an example. I don't know, getting 30 grand a year from that. You're getting 30 grand a year from your pension.
Yeah.
Let's say you're getting the state pension too.
Yeah.
You could be on £70,000 a year.
Yeah.
As a pensioner. You're going to get taxed in exactly the same way that an employed person would be. The
so
first
they tax you on the way in and on the way out. Wow.
But mind you, you've just taken, you can now, you will never escape tax. Like, you know, they always say there's two things that are certain in life: death and taxes.
Even your pension age, if people thought, no, I don't think people actually deep this. They think, 100%. I think they think pensions like a tax-free life. Like, oh yeah, your money's there and it's
definitely tax favorable. For sure.
Favorable. I like that. Tax favorable, not tax free.
Not tax.
I love it.
It's definitely tax favorable in the short term and when you want to come and draw down.
Yeah.
Because remember, I said you got that 25% tax free lump sum.
Okay, so is it better to do that lump sum first? Just let me just take. Well, okay, I know it's complicated. It's a complicated.
And again, it'll be based on individual circumstances.
Okay.
But what we would do is we'll sit down with a client. We'll understand their circumstances first and foremost to provide that tailored advice. But in some cases, it might not be relevant for the client or the individual to actually draw down from their private pension if they've got income coming from elsewhere. Because there's no point drawing money down from a pension if it's just going to be taxed, right? So
I get what you mean.
If you've got loads of income, I don't know, you've got property, like I said, property empire, and that's giving you a really good income in retirement, you probably don't want to be drawing anything down from your pension, because if you add to it, you're just going to create an even more tax burden for yourself. Yeah. Whereas someone else who doesn't have any income might actually genuinely rely on that pension to live their lifestyle. Actually, you would advise that person to draw down from their pension, and you'll try and do it in as tax efficient way as possible.
Okay. Is there any other taxes that we should be aware about in relation to pensions? Anything else?
They are the main ones. The other favourable thing about pensions is based on current legislation. Pensions are not subject to inheritance tax.
Okay.
Based on current legislation.
Current legislation.
Yeah. So if you die and pass away before the age of 75, your pension pot can pass down to whoever you choose to leave it to, free of inheritance tax and free of any income tax, which is a massive plus. Especially if you've got quite a big portfolio of which the rest of your assets are going to get taxed. That's actually quite a nice way for you to protect your inheritance tax liability. If you pass away over the age of 75, there won't be any inheritance tax due, but whoever your beneficiaries are of your pension, they will have to pay income tax at their own rate. So if they're a 40% rate taxpayer and they draw down from your pension, they will pay 40% on the income that they draw down from your pension if it's inherited. So there's no inheritance tax, but if they draw the money down, they'll pay tax at their at their own rate. That's if you pass away over the age of 75.
Okay. Wow. This is crazy. Okay, so I wanted to talk about inflation actually, because that's quite important. Like we've talked in the past, like there's been a lot of inflation in the past recently. Although it's coming down, right? So we talked about numbers, and I know again it could vary widely, but like, okay, so I mentioned obviously the 50,000, right? How does somebody kind of think about that going into the future? So say like now, okay, I know I've done my calculations and it's saying, okay, I need to have a pension pot of 1 million. Is it taken into consideration inflation as well? That inflation's gonna maybe have an impact on the value of your money?
It's a very good question. And I suppose it's the reason why you would invest in your pension is because one, obviously you're trying to provide yourself with an income, but you're also trying to beat inflation. Because the reality is we don't know what inflation is going to be.
Yeah.
We just don't know because we're not there yet, right? So if you say you want a salary of an income of 50 grand a year in retirement, the reality is 20 years from now, we don't know how much 50,000 is going to be worth. Now, the government has a target for inflation of 2% a year.
Yeah.
So as a reasonable assumption, or a working assumption, not reasonable, working assumption, you can say, right, if I want 50 grand a year, if I add 2% inflation every single year for 20 years when I retire, what would that be?
Okay.
And that might then be the income you need when you're retired.
Yeah.
But like I said, the reality is we don't know what inflation is going to be. So that's just a working assumption.
Okay.
And that's the reason why you would invest in your pension, is because if you assume, based on the government's target, that inflation is going to run at 2% every year, your pension needs to beat 2% every year for you to grow your pot at a faster rate than inflation.
Yeah. Okay.
So in theory, if your pension grows at more than 2% or the government's 2% target, in theory, you should be better off when you factor inflation in.
Okay. Okay.
Because if your pension grows at 6%, inflation's running at 2%.
Yeah.
In real terms, you're 4% better off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes so much sense. So in terms of the spring budget, right, was there, I know we talked about, a few of the changes, like the child benefit and stuff like that. Was there any impact to like state pension, private pension, things like that?
No, not to pensions specifically per se. The big ones was the cut in national insurance by an extra 2 percentage points. That was a biggie. The child benefits was definitely a big one. Raising the income threshold from 50 to 60. That was massive. There was a bit, without getting too technical, on non-domicile status, but that becomes a bit complex and probably a conversation for a different day. But they were kind of the real key meaty headlines coming out of the spring budget. Less so on pensions, because that £60,000 limit that I mentioned to you, that you can pay into your pension, it was previously £40,000 was the max you could pay in any one tax year, and it was only in April 23, so April last year, when they raised the threshold from 40 to 60. Okay. Right, so that was a real thing. And also what they announced, they announced it last year, but it's really going to come into effect in April 24, is there was previously a limit on how much you can have. It's called a lifetime allowance. Okay. How much can you have in your pension pot over your lifetime? Okay. So all the years you paid into pension, the maximum you could have, it's a very random number, was £1,073,100. Yes, I think.
What, privately or?
No, in total. Okay. Your total pension pot. That is your lifetime allowance.
Allowance? Why?
That's the maximum that the government says you can hold in your pension over your lifetime. Oh. Yeah, so you can have several different pensions. Yeah. But when you combine them all, the lifetime allowance was £1,073,100. If you went above that, there will be a tax charge. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But they announced, I want to say my timelines might be a bit off, but they did announce it last year, I believe, to say we're going to abolish the lifetime allowance. So now you can have as much in your pension pot as you want without a tax charge. Okay.
What's the play there?
It's all to do with the workforce, and particularly in the public sector, is they want to keep as much people working as they can. Okay. Because if there was a lifetime allowance, and I think I was reading about this, it predominantly affected nurses, doctors, consultants who earn loads of money. Once they got to a certain amount in their pension pot, which was the lifetime allowance, they could choose to stop working. Okay. Yeah, because...
Good point.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you're going to tax me on my pension contributions, I might as well stop working. But by removing the lifetime allowance, what the government is hoping is it's going to keep more people in work because they can continue paying into their pension and receiving the tax benefit and the tax relief of doing so.
That's a dastardly plan.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
Look, I'm not here to criticize it because I think there's pros and cons to everything. But I think what it is being informed of it. Understanding, okay, that's their plan. Cool, I understand it. I can go along with it. Why don't? I think that's the important thing. But I think it's when we don't know about it, we don't have theories, we don't read about it, we're not educated about it. It's like, wow, like we're just working.
Completely. Yeah. And you can imagine, I mean, even before I said me getting into this through my dad, I was an avid reader. Like all the business news, all of those bits and pieces, very much read a lot. I guess that's probably my history background of always having the facts, the historical events, all those bits and pieces. I've just love reading. So I always look for those kind of finer details in anything that gets announced. And I'm quite curious about what's the driver of their decision making. Because sometimes you got to ask yourself, like even in probably the jobs that that you do, that we do, that most people do, I kind of go, right, if I was working in that business and I was the CEO, if I had access to the information that they have access to, would I make the same decision? Yeah. Because more time or not, we probably just don't have the access to the information that they have to make the decision. So when they make it, and if they don't explain it very well, we're like, rah, this doesn't even make sense. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So obviously you can never get it, but I'm trying to always seek out the information that they have access to as to why they made the decision that they did. And then I can then make my own kind of judgment on it as to, actually, would I do something a bit differently? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's mad. Thank you so much, Godfrey. This has been, it's been such an enlightening conversation. Like, I feel like I learned a lot. I thought I knew pensions at a decent level. Clearly haven't after the conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot. And I think it just encourages you to just always just keep on top of these kind of things, these kind of decisions. Like I didn't even know about the whole private thing going to 57. So these kind of things, right? Like now that you know it, you can of course plan accordingly. Exactly. Okay. If I for instance, say somebody, because I know there's some people that want to retire 40, 45, right? And then maybe they'll think, okay, maybe I could last 45 to 55. Yeah. Okay, now you've got to do another 2 years, right? How do you so your plans change, right? So having conversations like this kind of encourages people to think about that kind of stuff.
100%. Trust me, read. Or if you feel like you want access to a professional, make sure it's a regulated financial advisor. Go and seek out their guidance, their expertise, and based on your individual circumstances, they'll be able to obviously support you in a way that's best for you. Yeah,
amazing. Where can people find you? Obviously, if they want to reach out, talk to you about what you do and
No, I appreciate that. I said mainly probably LinkedIn. Godfrey Asare, my surname spelled Asare. So mainly on LinkedIn. I also do have my own website, FE and F, and the and is AND, actually written out, FENF.co.uk. Which is financial, basically stands for financial education and freedom. So FENF.co.uk.
I love that name when I checked out the website.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, like I said, it's been such an important conversation, especially pensions. And I feel like it's really just showed you the importance of planning. Like planning is so important. Like I do plan, but I think sometimes you have to just have plans for every stage of your life, right? Because it's your life. You want to be in kind of control of it, and you just want to kind of be prepared for
whatever comes your way.
Exactly. Yeah. So
and I get it though. It's like everyone's busy, everyone's working, life gets on top of everyone. So trying to find the time and headspace to sit down and do life admin can be quite of a challenge, but I would encourage anybody to do it and as soon as possible because how it is, we were in Aylesbury and in the blink of an eye, look at where we are, right? So in the blink of an eye we'll be 55, 60 having a conversation.
Exactly.
No, as in, I genuinely remember you with your cousin and that in Aylesbury, and I can't believe that from being 10, 11 years old or whatever, when now in my early 30s kind of thing. So
exactly.
Yeah,
crazy.
definitely.
20 years like that,
I know,
right?
like, blink of an eye. Yeah. That's when we'll be like 50. So yeah, no, my encouragement to, my message to everyone is to encourage them to plan from early.
Yeah.
Definitely plan from early, and you will see in no time, your plans will start to come into fruition. Yeah. And obviously regularly review your plans as well. Obviously,
I love that. So, do you have any final words for watchers and listeners?
No, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate you obviously bringing me down to have the conversation. No, it's been I've had a really good time obviously chatting it through. So, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the community.
Thank you.
No, seriously, getting all of the like people that you come onto your show, the experts, like there's real gems that each of your guests, and obviously even the way you ask the questions as well, it really teases it out. Do you know what I mean? So there's real gems that people are getting from it. So thank you to you as well, bro.
Appreciate you, Godfrey. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you in next week's episode.